Hello, and thanks again for joining me as I turn this VW Craft, the medium wheelbase, into a camper van. Now this is a 21 plate, and today I'm talking to you about how I went about installing these two windows in the back doors of my van. Now I installed this window first, and everything I learnt on this window, I then applied it to the other window. Although I still did have a problem with the primer on this window, and I'll explain towards the end of the video what that problem was. Now, I'm not going to be covering the door panel which I got on here, or this black surround which I've got going around the window. That'll be for another video. But of course, I'll show you how I worked out the correct position for the windows, the best way to go about sealing them onto your van, and of course I'll highlight those problems which I came across, so when you come to fit your windows, you won't have those problems. Now, just a little update for anybody who's not been watching my videos. I've now got my electrics in. That's all working fine. You can see my solar panels working away there. I've got just over 500 watts of solar on the roof. I've finished fitting my over-the-wheel latch tank, and I'm just started fitting the Truma water heater. And that is going to go in as soon as I receive the ducts in, so I can make sure I get it in a correct position. So I'm 6 months in now, and I've pretty much finished all the groundwork now. And then it's just a case of putting in the bed, which I've already got ready to go, and then putting some cabinets when we decide exactly what we're going to build. Although I do need to work this front area here out first of all. But anyway, let's get on with fitting these windows in the back of the van. Now, I just want to let you know, I'm not sponsored by this company. They've not been given to me for free. We bought them off eBay. We're really happy with them, and we just want to share these windows with all you folks who are building a camper van. Now, if you do find my video useful at all, then please give me a little bit of feedback by clicking on the old thumbs up. And of course, you can click on subscribe, and that will help others to find the video as well. And I'd like to say a really big thank you to everybody who's bought me a cup of coffee and left me a small donation. It's really, really appreciated, and it does really help me to make more detailed videos like this one. So again, thanks for your support. So I just wanted to give you a couple of reasons why we've opted for these windows in the back of our van. Firstly, we wanted to make the bed as high as possible. So our bed's going to be around here somewhere, and then the mattress is going to be probably about that kind of height, something like that inside the van, so that we can just about sit up in the van. That's what we wanted to do, and have the most garage space which we wanted. And obviously, if we had a full window, our mattress would then be over the top of the window, and that's not ideal because we might have condensation or something on the window in the morning. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't go for that. And then the reason was because we wanted the air to be able to flow in through the back of the van and then go out through the max air fan. So at any time of the day or the night, we could be lying on our bed and we can just use the max air fan, use the remote control, turn the fan on, and then we get a nice cool breeze being pulled across the bed through the back windows, which obviously is going to be really nice if we're in a hot country. Obviously, these particular windows have got a fly screen also, which make them a little bit better. That just slides backwards and forwards, and obviously the windows slide backwards and forwards as well. In the ideal situation, they'd be curved to curve around the door, but I couldn't find any which were like that, which were openable. So that's why we opted for these. The windows came with some proper window sealant, so they stuck on really nicely. And this proved to be a really good sealant. They also came with some instructions, which none of the other windows have. And of course, it came with a primer and the wipes and everything else to go with fitting the windows. So overall, I would definitely recommend these windows, and obviously I'll leave a link to where we got them from down in the description. So here's my two windows, and one of the first things that I did was I made some templates. So I made a template to go around the whole of the outside of the window, and I also made a template the same size as the window, which is also the size of the cutouts which I need to make in the door. The only thing I would say is a template which I made out of cardboard to cut out the window. I would highly recommend making it out of thin plywood, because when I cut out the hole in the van, the cardboard moved a bit, my lines weren't quite straight, and it meant that I had to trim the hole several times. And this was really annoying, and it made my hole a little bit rubbish. And like I said before, if I was doing this again, I'd definitely make this in a template out of thin plywood. So here's my back door, and you can see this is going to be the window. I mean, I don't have much choice in this door. I can't put the window up there. It's just not going to fit. So So that is actually my actual window size, and that's the hole on the inside I need to cut. So there's no chance of going in the top there, not unless I want to cut all this out and to cut out this strengthening. Not going to do that. So they're pretty much going to go right there, like that. So that's where it's going to fit in that slot there. And then I don't need to touch any of this side work. So I can literally just cut a hole all the way around there, and it should just drop in there perfectly, like that. So that is the plan. So I've just noticed looking at the back doors this panel slopes upwards. Both of these slope up like that. And you can see that if I put the ruler on there, you can see we've got a gap here, and obviously the ruler's touching here, which means that they definitely go up. So I put this level on there, you can see how that's going up. So do I make the window level with this beam? So there's going to be a slight angle. But from the outside, which might look better because the outside there's a little crease in the van there. Or do I do it level so the windows are level? I'm thinking. Now in the end I decided to do the windows level because if there's any water on the windows for condensation or anything, then it may not run down the drains properly and I may have water dripping off the window onto my bed, and I definitely don't want that. Donna's just been cleaning off the back of the van because there's definitely been some sticky labels on there. Now I didn't film the whole of the next part because I wasn't sure exactly what I was doing, but what I decided to do was to make another template the whole size of the window. I then made a hole in that template about 50mm away from the edge of the window. I then placed that template onto the van door on the inside and then drilled a hole in the door. I could then put that template on the outside of the van and see exactly where the window was sitting on the back of the door, because it's really difficult to work out exactly where the window is going to sit on your door. So I drilled a hole in the outside corner, then used the same template and put it on the other door and drilled another hole in that outside corner, and then I went to the outside of the van and I drew a line all the way across the van from one hole to the other hole, because it's virtually impossible to draw a straight line on the inside of the van. Now I was really struggling to get my templates in the right place. I just couldn't seem to get it right. And then I suddenly realized why. And here is that reason. I've been trying to make these windows level, trying to work out various different ways of doing it. I've been putting my templates on, swapping them around, and I've been trying to work out why. I've been putting this on here. Now I should have this dead level. I'm going to put this onto here because I drilled the line through here and here, but it's not. It's level with the window. I'm thinking, what's going on there? That isn't right. And I've suddenly realized that, which is fairly obvious when I look at it now, is that these two doors are different sizes. They're different sizes. So when I did my template and I put it here, this is at a higher point than this bit here. That's why that didn't work. Oh my God, this is so hard to do. This is such a simple job to do, and yet it's proven to be very hard. Okay, new plan. So after much messing around, I finally realized that the doors on the outside are the same size, but on the inside, the panels, the way they line up, they're different size, and it kind of threw me for ages, and I was trying to work out why I couldn't get my holes equal, right place. But anyway, I worked out kind of how to do it. It's pretty obvious really. Just measure the center of the window, which was 100mm to the center, and then basically find the center and draw a line across the van like I have here. So that's my center line for my windows, and then I've actually dropped it down a little bit. So that's now my center line, those two holes there and those two there. And then I just got to make sure that they're in the same place on both sides. 155 to that hole, both pretty much spot on, center to center, that millimeter difference. Yeah, that'll do. Happy with that. Then what I've done, I took my template, which is the template of the whole window size. I marked around where the window, what the cutout is for the window. I then put two center holes to mark the position of those, so I know where the center is. I then put my skewer through, so now the window is now level all the way across, because I've lined with these lines in the center here. So those windows are now level. I then just marked by drawing through with a pencil all the way around. It might be slightly out, but I can always adjust that afterwards. And you can see then I've marked this one here. And you can see all these other holes. I've been trying to work it out. And that's because this part here, this bit from here to here, is longer than this bit here to here, which means that this height here is slightly different to that height there. And that threw me for a while. I couldn't work out what's going on. It's pretty obvious because this is much fatter than this part here. But yeah, so anyway, just bear that in mind when you come to fit the windows. Then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around this with my pencil. That's all I did. I just went around this, marking dots, and then I just joined it up to dot. Now with hindsight now looking at it, I don't know why I didn't just cut around the window cutout and just draw around the template. That would have made far more sense and been a lot easier. So I just used a pencil and made little marks all the way around the window, and then I just used a ruler and joined the dots up. So finally, I'm now happy that I've got my window cutouts marked in the correct place. Now I'm just going to double check myself and make sure that the windows are level by drilling a couple of holes on the bottom of the window here. One here, middle, and one here. One here. Then I just went to the outside of the van, used my ruler and just made sure that those 4 holes all lined up nice and level. Then I made some sort of cardboard creation on the back of the van to catch all the swarf when I cut the holes out. I then drilled a larger hole on the inside of the window to fit my jigsaw through, and then of course I just used my jigsaw and cut around. Again, this was pretty awkward because trying to get a jigsaw around those corners doesn't really work very well. But there we go, finally I got my first window cut out. So now I just tried popping a window in the hole, and it did need a little bit of trimming. It wasn't quite right, which is a little annoying. It would have been better, like I said, to make a wooden template and to get that hole right the first time. So you only need to cut it once. So you can see it's not quite fitting. I'm just working out where I need to trim it away. Now I talked about jigsaw blades on my other video when I did my side windows, but I thought I'd just recap over it again. This is a really fine tooth blade, and this cuts through this metal really easily. It takes a little longer. It goes through nice and smooth, and it leaves hardly any burr. Now, you can use some different blades. This is a T118G, and then I also use these to cut out the max fan. That's a T118A. And you can see the blade on this, it's a lot coarser blade. It's not hugely coarser, but it definitely is a little bit coarser. It cut through it okay, but it is from metal also. Ideally, you want to have 2 teeth on the piece of metal which you're cutting through. That's just what the sort of standard says. It seems to be the A and the G, which makes a difference of the number of teeth. Now this is a wood saw blade, and you can see the teeth are much coarser, and if you tried using this blade, you may cut through the metal okay, but you'd end up with a very big burr, and you'd find your jigsaw would be jumping around a lot because it'd be really ripping through that metal. So not ideal. Right, now let's get on with cutting this window out. Now I did end up with some scratches on the paintwork as I lifted up and moved the jigsaw around the corner. But there's not really much I could do about that. But anyway, there we go, that's that window now cut out. So now I'm just marking on the edge of the window where I just need to trim a little bit more metal off. I'm just using a marker pen and just making a line, and all I've got to do is just remove that line I've just made. So now I'm using a flapper wheel in my drill, and I'm just taking away that extra little bit of metal. Then I just use my flapper wheel again just to continue around the window and remove all the burrs. And there we go, that's now done. Now we just got the cleanup operation. Not really worried about scratches here. I'm going to touch those up with a bit of Hamrite anyway. But we do need to get rid of all these bits of dust and bits of metal. This stuff just gets everywhere. It's a complete nightmare. Just to continue that, I've seen a few videos where professionals are cutting out windows, and they say this stuff is a nightmare. So if they're saying it and they do it all the time, I've seen some people wrap the entire van in a bag and then do all the cutting, because literally this stuff, it's so light and fine, it just blows everywhere, and it sits on your paintwork outside, and then it starts going rusty, little spots everywhere. And if you want to watch my nightmare video from my Max Air fan, it was a windy day,
and it blew all the bits all over the van. I brushed the van off. I thought I cleaned it all, but it turned out it was just everywhere. Complete nightmare. So if you're ever cutting anything out, try not to do it on a windy day, because the dust just goes everywhere. See, this window went a lot better than the other one. What I should have done was made a wooden template, which fitted perfectly over the window. Then I could have got perfect hole first time and not mess around like I did with this one, where it's a little bit out of shape. But it's fine, the window would go on it all right. But it would have saved a bit of messing around and having to cut twice instead of just once. So that's a good idea. A little bit of plywood would have saved a whole lot of time. Now hopefully my boxwork on the back here has caught all the filings. I can't see anything on the paintwork here, but I still got to get this off without dropping filings everywhere. And there's still a bit of breeze in the air, so it can easily just blow around everywhere. So I kind of a bit unsure what to do.
So what I decided to do was to just use my vacuum and try and suck up as much of those metal filings as possible. Now, even though I put all that boxwork up and tried to stop the filings from getting everywhere, you can still see that I got metal filings all over the back of the van. This stuff is a complete nightmare. Then I just give the outside of the van a bit of a clean off with some alcohol, making sure all my pencil marks and pen marks are gone.
So now I'm just going around the metalwork with the primer. A lot of people use Hammerite, but all the professionals, they just seem to use the primer. So I just thought I'm going to do the same thing. Just go around this metalwork with the primer, because it goes on really easily and it's set in a few minutes. So it's like, why use something else which takes so much longer to dry? And this is all going to be covered with carpet or something, so it doesn't matter if it looks a bit messy. No one's going to see it as long as it's protected. Yeah, just go over those bits as well.
There we go, that's my cutouts now all primed and protected, and there's plenty more primer in the pot which came with the windows. Then I just primed the outside of the van. Again, with hindsight, I would do this differently, and you'll see why towards the end of the video. A better idea would have been to put the window on and then draw around the window, and then stick tape on all the way around, but on the inside of the line, so the tape is just inside the window. And again, you'll see why towards the end of the video.
Right, so now with the windows, I've actually already done it. I forgot to press record, but all I've done is I've just gone all the way around the outside like this. A nice good spread around that. I've gone around it all the way around it once, and then I've gone around it a second time just to cover up the entire part of the glass. Being careful with this part here, because this bit is our drain, and that obviously goes at the bottom, and we don't want any sealant blocking that up. And that's basically all I've done. I've done the same with this one here, gone all the way around the outside on a nice bead all the way around. It's nice and easy because you just keep it up against the edge. I mean, I can probably do it again just to show you. So just went round like that, nice and easy. And then you can go around it again a second time. Just going to make sure you get right up to the edge there. And that's it. So now I just got to wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes for this to dry. And then I can then put the sealant on and glue them on. And I've still got quite a bit of paint inside there. Not quite sure what I use it for, but anyway, got some more in there if I need it.
So now it's time to apply some sealant. Now I decided to apply the sealant to the door rather than the window, because if I put it on the window, I might not put the sealant in quite the right position. Whereas if I put it on the door, I know it's definitely in the correct position because I'm just going to squash the glass straight onto the door. Now, when I did the first window, I forgot that the doors were curved and I needed to put a lot more sealant on the edges and a lot less in the middle. Now, when I came to do the second window, I put tape all the way around as well. I don't know why I didn't do it on the first door. I didn't think it through properly. And I wasted a whole lot of time cleaning up sealant and putting extra sealant in where it was needed. Now it's just a case of putting the window into the hole. Now it's a really good idea to have someone on the inside just to help you guide the window in, because you just can't see where you're putting it and you don't want to be putting the wrong part of the window onto the sealant. Now it's just a case of squashing the window down and making sure that it is in the correct position. With this window, not like the side windows, there's no beading, so it's just a case of pulling the window down hard onto the metal, and that's about it. Now it's just a case of cleaning off that sealant which is oozed out. this is where I wish I put some tape down. And also, because I had those leaks on the side windows, I was over generous with the sealant because I definitely didn't want any leaks. And if you want to know how I went about fixing those leaks on my side windows, you can check those videos out. One was how I went about fitting the windows, and the other one was how I went about fixing the leaks. So now I've finished fitting my first window. I am really happy with it, but I did make a load of silly mistakes, which I'm definitely going to correct on the second window.
So yesterday I fitted this window here, and it's all gone okay, but there were a few issues which I had when doing it, and I realized that a much better way of doing it in the end because of several things. For instance, it's pretty obvious, but the door is curved and the window's flat, so that when you put it on, you have to make up a whole load of sealant or have a gap all around the window. And I've made it up with sealant, and I think it looks pretty good, but obviously it'd be better if the window was curved.
When we were shopping for windows, we couldn't find any windows that were openable and were curved to match these doors. If you know anywhere where you can get some windows which are curved and openable, then obviously let us all know in the comments below.
If we take a look at the window inside, okay, it looks a bit messy. We've got all this black stuff around the place. That's where a lot of the sealant oozed out on the inside here. And that's just because I had a lot oozing out on the top and the bottom, and I kind of cleaned some of that off, and I didn't bother cleaning off the rest of it because, well, I'm not going to see it, so it doesn't really matter once I've covered this all up. So that's all fine. And obviously the black here is the primer where I just scratched the edge of the panel when I was cutting the hole out. But this window's gone okay, so I'm happy with this window. Now I'm going to work on this window, which the hole cutout is a lot better. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that the window is going to sit level in the van, or level so that any water that collects in the bottom here is going to run out of the drains and not be sat at one end. So I've got my window here, and I can just put it in the hole here like this now. Okay. And you can see there's quite a bit of movement. See how this rocks backwards and forwards here. So that is flat on the back there. If I put that flat against the panel there, you can see how much gap I've got here. It's nearly like 25 millimeters, or a couple of centimeters there. So we have to make this gap up. I saw someone say that they tried to flatten the panel. I'm going to say that's definitely not the thing you want to do. You're going to ruin your doors doing that. So what I've got my ruler here, so that is just about level there. Yeah, that's it there. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pencil, and I'm going to draw around the outside of the window, right on the very edge of the window, or very slightly inside, but I want to make it pretty much level with the window. Okay, so I'm going to go around it with that. Draw a nice line all the way around, like that. Now hopefully you can see you've got pencil line going all the way around the outside of the window here. So now I know where the outside of the window is, and I'm going to tape this up now all the way around the outside. It's going to make my life way easier. So now I'm taping this up, and I'm just keeping the pencil line in view, so I can then just clean that pencil line off in a minute. So there we go, up it there. And then to go around the corners, the way I found is it's best, because you can't bend the tape, is just to get lots of bits of tape and just stick them on. So I'm just been tearing this tape in half like that. Just get lots of short bits and just go around the outside of it and create your curve. Like that. So I'm just finishing this last corner off now, and then I've gone all the way around it. So then what I'm going to do is just to make sure this is all stuck down thoroughly, because I don't want any of it oozing out underneath. So now I'm just going to go around it again with a bit of alcohol, wipe it around, make sure there's no grease on there where I've been sticking that tape on, and also clean off that pencil line. Then I'm going to primer it, and I'm going to primer right up to the tape, or over the tape. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do next. One last quick wipe round. There we are. So that's all cleaned off now. This is my method. You can do whatever method you like. This is just the way which I'm going to do it. You may have a better way of doing it. So now I'm just going to get my bit of primer. I'm going to hopefully just paint this around, and it's not going to run down the van.
Now with hindsight again, I realised that I should have done this slightly differently. Instead of putting the tape on the outside of the line, I should have put it just a couple of millimeters on the inside of the line, and that would have stopped me from having a problem, which I'm going to have in just a couple of minutes.
Now I've already cleaned the glass with the wipe and cleaner, and I've also gone in with the primer. So I've primed it right up to the very edge here, and even I've gone just slightly over the edge because the sealant's going to be going right up to the edge here. And when I put the sealant on, I'm going to be going around the edge, not around the inside as where I did last time. So when I do that, I've got to make sure that I don't block up these drains here. So what I'm going to do there, I'm just going to put a bit of tape on them just to try and stop any sealant from going up inside there. We can clean them out afterwards if needs be, but it's just better that they don't get blocked up in the first place. And that's just going to stop the sealant now from going up inside there, and I can just peel that off. And then hopefully we're going to have a nice clear hole there. Okay, so now I've got my two drains blocked up, so I know I'm not going to sealant inside there.
Now, if you do get some sealant up inside the drains, you can use like a little jigsaw blade maybe. I'm just using a junior hacksaw blade, which I've just snapped off the end, and I'm just making sure that those drain holes are nice and clear. Obviously, be careful that you don't scratch your van. Now on this window, I'm using Screwfix No Nonsense Hybrid Black Sealant, because I wasted a lot of sealant on the other window and I'm not sure if I got enough to go around the entire window. So I didn't want to risk using the other sealant and run out halfway around. Now this sealant was very easy to come out the tube, and my aim is to put it on quite thickly on the ends of the window and then do a little bit less in the middle of the window. And obviously on this time I'm actually putting the sealant on the window instead of on the van. And this method definitely worked out a lot better. I moved in very slightly when I went over the drains. I put a little less sealant on when I went across the middle section. And then on the end of the windows, I went over again and added another line of sealant on top of the other sealant just to make it a bit thicker. So when I squidge it down onto the van, we got enough sealant there to definitely fill in that gap.
So now I've got my gloves on, I'm ready to fit it onto the door. So now hopefully I'm going to get this in the hole first time. There we go. You can see that oozing out there on the side here. See, as I push it, it oozes out. That's good. That's what I wanted to see. And the bottom here, again, you can't push it anymore because it's hard up against the metal. And then we've got a gap around here, and that definitely needs filling in with some sealant on that side.
Now I've just put a bit of tape on the outside of the window and I pulled it through onto the inside, so it just raises that end of the window slightly. After I stuck the window on, I was happy with its position. I then got my trim tools and I used those tools to clean off the excess and smooth up the edges until I had a nice finish. After I was happy, I got a nice finish with the sealant. I then used some alcohol to finish it off.
Clean pair of gloves, and I've just been using my alcohol, dipping a finger in the alcohol, and then just wiping it around to get a really nice smooth finish. Like that. Same on the side here, so I'm happy with that side. That looks pretty good. Let's do it one last time. There's like a tiny little bump there. Like that. Okay, that looks good. And this side here, I've already done this side here, so I don't want to do it again because the sealant has started going off now. Little tiny bump on the bottom. Let's just try and straighten that out. There we go.
Now I've got to remove the tape, which is a bit of a nightmare because it sticks to everything and it's covered in sealant.
When you peel this away, you want to kind of peel it upwards and not downwards. Let me peel this off.
And there we go, that's the tape all now peeled off. Using the tape was so much easier than just trying to wipe it off like I did on the other window. Now I've just got to peel off the tape which are protecting the drains. There we go, that's one bit peeled off. Now I just do the other one. Now I'm thinking the window's pretty much done, but then I ran into another little problem.
So the window's all going fine, but, and there is a but, because there always is, on the window here. So I've got these little black marks, lines, all the way around the window. See that? It's not smooth like this side. This side, lovely smooth finish. But this side I've got these little black marks all the way around. And I know what's happened now, as I look at it, it's the primer. When I painted around the paper tape, it then bled underneath that paper tape and it's left little primer lines. This primer is really hard to clean off, so I'm not going to be cleaning that off. See on the top here? You can see it all along there. So it's not the end of the world. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure it's all clean again, and I'm just going to have to re-tape it all over again and just literally go over that tiny bit and cover it up with some more sealant. Okay, so lesson learned now. I wasn't sure about doing that with the primer.
So the lesson there is, if you paint over the top of paper tape with that primer, the primer seeps underneath the paper tape and then you get these little bleed lines. Obviously that is not what I wanted at all. Now I decided not to put tape on again and reseal it all. Instead I did this.
So what I did in the end to get rid of these little bleed marks around the bottom here, I just used a bit of T-cut. That seems to be the only thing to get it off. I tried using white spirit and I even tried using cellulose thinners and alcohol, just wouldn't get it off. But just using my little tool here, just put it on this bit of old rag here and just bend it over like that. Put a little bit of T-cut on the end and just basically polish it off. So I just literally just putting a little bit of polish on here, that little drop like that, and then go around the edges and just literally just polish it off. And that seemed to be the only way to actually get it off. So I'm not sure if you see, there's a couple of marks just there. Just carefully it took a little while, but I think probably just as long to put tape around it, and then it would have been a bigger black line around the window, which I didn't really want. There we go, that's the two windows finished. You can see I've got the fly screen across in this one to stop the flies getting in, and I've got the window closed on that one. They've both come out pretty well, happy with them. We've got a nice clean joint on both sides. Come on this side, there you go, you can see there's a nice clean joint there. And when I come around the other side, on this panel, it's also nice and clean. So I'm happy with the finish. They look pretty good. In the ideal situation, they'd be curved to curve around the door, but I couldn't find any which were like that, which were openable. So that's why we opted for these. Right, that's about it then. So I do hope this video has helped you out. If you're thinking about fitting two of these style of windows in the back of your van, or maybe in the side of your van, or anywhere else in your van. If you have them, please give me a bit of feedback by clicking on that thumbs up. You can click on the subscribe, and of course share it with all the other van buddies who are looking to build a camper van and maybe put some windows in like this. If it has proved to be useful to you, you can always get me a cup of coffee. That is always really appreciated. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.